the Swedish maker.
Thanks for having me. I want to tell you 3 stories from my life. 3 stories of how the 3D printer turned my life around and how I eventually have learned how to integrate it into our lives, where it is now not just something I use to 3D print items with. I use the 3D printer beyond 3D printing. It's late 2018, and I've been looking at 3D printers for a while, not really knowing what I would use it for, and not having good arguments to my wife why we should spend money on it. And it's one of those days where you know you have a little spare money on your account, and there's a slight itch to get rid of it. And you find yourself in this rabbit hole of YouTube reviews. And the deeper you go, that itch slowly turns into this devil on your shoulder that is giving you really good arguments as to why you why you need to buy that thing. Well, that day was exactly one of those days. And as you do, you don't tell your partner, you rely on that devil to explain it when the printer arrives, rather than trying to convince them beforehand. And I did not know this then, but that confrontation would not go as planned. So a week later, this box arrives, and it's so many parts that need to go together. If you've just bought a printer the last couple of years, you might not know this, but if you're one of the early adopters, you know more than me that it wasn't just a quick assembly. Everything needed to go together. The 3D printer I bought was a Creality CR10S, 300mm square build surface, and it also featured some new improvements like a filament runout sensor and a power loss recovery, which never really worked. Anyways, my wife finally came home that day, and she saw the beast already printing in our spare bedroom, and the first thing she said was, "That's too loud, that has to go in the basement." And then the inevitable question, how much was it? So it was time for that little devil to get to work. Well, if you consider what it can do, it really wasn't that expensive. I mean, when you need a flower pot, it can do that. And if you ever need something custom made, it can do that as well. And she looked at me and she said, "What are you printing now then?" And I said, well, I didn't say, because that was a hard question to answer, because I was actually printing a Darth Vader pen holder. So I just said it was $400, which was, of course, wasn't true. It was more along the lines of $600. But I was lucky that day, because then she said, "I probably shouldn't say anything because I bought a bench for the garden. And it's not really made for outdoor use, but I would like to have it in the greenhouse. Could you make small cups for the feet of the bench to protect it from water?" And without knowing how that would happen, I immediately said, "Yes, of course." So if there's one lesson to be learned from the first story of mine, it might be that you shouldn't ask your partner for permission. But if you can start to see the use of the 3D printer like my wife did immediately, it will soon turn into more than a 3D printer in every home. It'll be a helper, an assistant, a way to achieve things you couldn't achieve otherwise. 3D printing for me isn't about the dragons or fidget spinners. It's about solving everyday problems or creating new ones. But of course, there have been some of those unnecessary prints as well, like a Batman cowl. He doesn't have beard. Why? I don't know. Am I a Batman fan? Not at all. It's the boy inside of me that sometimes just comes up to the surface, I guess. I eventually learned to draw up the cups she needed for that garden bench, and it took me way longer than I thought, because I had no idea how CAD modeling worked. I didn't even know what CAD modeling was. But I'm going to thank my wife for that request, because not only did she spark a new interest I could dig deeper into, it would also lead me to a new life pursuit. But I did not know that then. Which brings me to the second story of mine. When you're young, there's really no one around that can tell you what personality traits you have to determine what you can do in life. Of course, it would be a bit weird if I were to try to tell my 4-year-old daughter about her future based on her behavior. So, hey, I'm patting my daughter on the cheek. This is what I'm doing. you will likely end up pretty useless as an adult. Because so far you haven't really achieved anything. Your resume pretty much sucks. You won't get the Nobel Prize just by watching Bluey. But looking back, it's been easy to analyze myself, and I realized I set off on the wrong path right away. This is me, regular kid. I had 2 brothers, awful people. Then, not now, they're okay now. With a gun to my head, I'll spend an evening with them. I played with friends when I was younger, but it was almost always they who called me, because I never really contacted anyone because I was fine being on my own at home, but just playing with my toys or whatever. But as I grew older, friendships mostly turned into hanging around. You know, some of my friends would call me and ask me to come over to watch a movie, and I was like, yeah, I can do that, but I could just watch a movie on my own as well. You see, I had no idea then that I was an introvert. So sometimes I lied. I said, I can't hang out because I wasn't feeling good, or that I were going away with my parents somewhere. But in all honesty, I just wanted to stay home because there was so much I was excited about. It could be silly things, like that I had an idea to redecorate my room and turn part of my closet into an office. What would a 9-year-old boy need an office for? I don't know. But it was exciting. It was fun. I was in my element and time flew by. I didn't really reflect that much about myself back then, but as I grew older, I started to realize that I wasn't the same as everyone else. As I spent a lot of time at home creating whatever I could with whatever I had, I slowly understood that I had a curiosity for how to make things and how to problem solve. And the time it became the most obvious to me was in the mid-90s when my parents bought a computer. It was a totally new world that opened up to me, so much to figure out. And for some reason, Windows 95, if some of you remember it, came bundled with a music video from the band Weezer and a song called Buddy Holly. There was just a problem. I realized pretty soon that my computer had a big flaw. It couldn't play audio, because every time it did, it froze. But because of that, I learned every inch of Windows 95 and all of the inside of that computer trying to problem solve. And I'm pretty happy about that. I also learned that I loved problem solving, although that particular problem never did get resolved. I didn't know what I wanted to do in life when I was young, and my father was a teacher, and as it often happens, I decided to follow his path. So I studied the teacher's program for 5 years in Sweden, still staying creative in my spare time, making music, making websites, learning Photoshop, whatever I got interested in. And as it happens in life, I found a wife, and we had a kid. It's not like I found a wife on the side of the road. I met her, we got to know each other, and then we got married. But I would have wished that someone would have pulled me to the side when I was younger and just said, hey, you're probably an introvert. It's nothing wrong with you. You just get your energy from being on your own. Some people get energy from being together with others. And that would have explained so much to me. And I might not have chosen an occupation where I had to meet and interact with people all day long. But that 3D printer I had at home, it was the same as when I was young. I didn't want to spend time teaching the kids about language history. I wanted to get home to 3D print something else. It was the tool that gave me new inventions, or had me printing a giant Super Mario that could talk, or that new modular hanger system that would let me hang different things in our hallway. It was the promise of something exciting and new that I didn't want to let go of. And at the same time, I was tormenting my friends on Instagram with my creations. Because that was the only way I knew to show the world what I was making. And I was also watching a lot of YouTube to learn more, and it just struck me one day. Instead of showing my friends what I make, maybe I can make new friends and show it to them instead. maybe I could create a YouTube channel and show the entire process. So I did. Not knowing then, that small decision of mine would change my life in ways I could never have imagined. I think my first viewer was my mom, and I know for a fact she skipped to the end. But everything I knew and learned in life came together in one. I knew the basics of the camera, and I got to learn more. I knew Photoshop, I knew how to make things, and I had this 3D printer that could make anything you asked it to, if you could get the first layer to adhere. There was a lot of tape, hairspray, and glue going down on a mirror from IKEA. This was way before textured PEI. But that first period of being on YouTube was a period in my life I won't forget. I learned so many things, and I spent every woken hour thinking about it. And slowly and steadily, I realized that both my creativity and my introverted side was a perfect match for being a YouTuber. And then COVID happened. And I'm sorry to anyone who had a really rough time back then, but to an introvert with a YouTube channel, it was a perfect time. And during that period, I started to earn some money on YouTube, and that gave me more fuel to keep working on it, because I had this vision. If it's possible for me to wake up in the morning, grab myself a cup of coffee, walk out on the porch, and just think, what can I make today? And if that could also be my work, well, then I need to pursue it. Okay, you're talking a lot about your life, sir. Yes, I'm sorry. It doesn't involve 3D printing that much, but this was the foundation of how I learned how to use my 3D printer. So if you still think you're in the search for your true passion, keep searching, because you will find it somehow. And if that passion is earning money through 3D printing, well, then this next story might be for you. My third story is about life change and how to use the 3D printer beyond 3D printing. As some of you might know, I'm a woodworker with a 3D printer. I 3D print for woodworking, a lot like some other creators here. But a lot like we use the 3D printer for woodworking, there are lots of other people here that use the 3D printer for other making-related things. A pottery studio could get a lot of help from a 3D printer. I know, because my wife just built her own pottery studio, and she's been occupying my 3D printers a bunch. And so could a leather craftsman, a cook, a designer, an architect. And it's not just about printing the finished items. Sometimes it's just about making a drill jig. It can be as simple as that. Here's my prediction, by the way. We're talking about predictions. I predict that a lot of companies will launch a lot of spare parts for print. I'm betting we will see more and more of that, and that will get more people into 3D printing as well. And I think we should push for it. Getting back. The possibilities with a 3D printer are endless, and the only ingredient we need to make it do all those things is creativity. But a lot of people think they aren't creative, so I want to break it down. I see creativity as the process of coming up with something original. But then again, what is original? Some would say the wheel was an original idea. But even that, they were rolling things on logs before they had wheels, and someone just had the idea of cutting out the middle part. So an idea to me is the sum of two ideas put together. Let me give you an example. This is a cheese slicer and a butter knife. They're normally used in conjunction, at least in Sweden. First, we put the butter on the sandwich, and then the cheese. Well, what if we take those two ideas and put them together? What do we get? A butter cheese slicer. I'm not saying it's a good idea, but it's an original idea put together by taking two existing ideas and combining them into something new and original. Creativity is just stealing other ideas and putting them together. I came up with this sandpaper storage based on the idea that bins hold sandpaper and a dowel they can swivel out on. And then people liked that idea so much that similar versions started to appear on Etsy. which is really cool because that means other people found the idea valuable and ideas sell. So I've made a bunch of dumb things that slowly fill the walls of my workshop, like this dangerous scissor hanger, based on the idea that you just want to grab the scissor and be cut ready. My favorite achievement, though, might be this stool where I combined 3D prints with wood and metal, and I used the 3D printer to make a contraption that would let me make the wooden threads. Not only did the 3D printer make things for the stool, I also used it to make jigs to be able to make the stool. As it turned out, my wife's father wanted to give her the farm that we'd been spending our summers at as an inheritance, which gave us the opportunity to move there, and that also meant I could quit my job, which was a blessing for me because, quite frankly, if I would have had to deal with teenagers one more day in school, moving to that farm also meant that I could go full-time into content creation, a dream coming true. The only catch was that I had to move into this small workshop where my woodworking tools and my 3D printers had to be separated. So from an already small space, I had to make it even smaller to accommodate my 3D printers in the tiniest room. And the actual house on the farm needs renovating, so we moved our entire family from a 170 square meter house to our 60 square meter summer house. And that's when I really started to 3D print a lot, because the 3D printer is the perfect tool to create smart storage. And then the 3D printer slowly became a tool that I just depended on, not only for work, but for our lives on the farm as well. Every time I need to solve a problem, I turn on the creative switch in my head and I start to think about how I can fix a problem. And many times the ideas of mine generate sales because other people want the same fix. For me, the 3D printer is a machine. It's an idea. But if you put that together with yourself, the creativity you have, the eager to come up with new things, the curiosity of opening a computer up to see what's inside, or the curiosity that makes you an early adopter that buys a 3D printer you don't know what to use it for. Small passes. I just want to mention, talking about curiosity and being an early adopter, I was so nervous about doing this speech in English and remembering my words, and then I stumbled upon smart glasses. So I'm actually wearing smart glasses that is showing me what I'm saying right now. But if you take that curiosity and the problem solving you love, the experience you have with life, you end up with something that is original. Because a 3D printer is cool, but it's nothing without the creativity of ours. So don't think you're not creative, because everyone is. So what's the takeaway from these 3 stories? Well, I started as a curious newbie making impulse buys, became a creator, sharing ideas worldwide, and ended up with a life-changing tool and career. I challenge you to follow that crazy idea you've been toying with, because you never know where it might lead. So turn on the creative switch and combine that with your 3D printer, and that's how you create beyond 3D printing. Thank you. I can take these off now, right?
You can, sure. Any questions for Pierre? Hands up. There.
What's the brand of the glasses? I think I didn't notice, so I'm really curious. And most of them are really bulky and ugly, and these are really
These are called
nice.
Even Realities smart glasses. They're not as smart as Dave's, because you've got the cameras and stuff, right? Yeah, you have the AI ones. These have some AI. You can ask questions, and it'll appear as text, but not much more than that. They've got a teleprompter as well.
And then maybe a follow-up question. Do you think you approach 3D printing differently coming from woodworking? As in, do you look at it differently than some others here?
I think someone I spoke to earlier said it really well. He said there's a difference between being a printer and being interested in printing, 3D printing, or being interested in 3D printers. So I'm interested in 3D printing. I use the printer a lot. I print. I'm not too keen on messing about with the printer, changing stuff or upgrading them. I just want it to work so I can do what I want.
There's another question.
What software do you use
For
modeling?
For modeling, I use Fusion. I think it's called Fusion right now.
Yeah.
Only Fusion. Yeah, it made the most sense to use that since it was a
'cause
free.
you're quite working technically.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyone else? Hands up. There's another question.
What's the craziest project you've done yet?
Ooh, that's a good one. I think one of the craziest projects that I did was making this giant Super Mario that could talk, because it was such a weird project to me. I'd never done anything like it, but it was the project that gave the most fun out of it. Like the kids loved it, because every time you walked past it, it had some Super Mario quote playing from a speaker inside of it. So I think that's probably, because I'm mostly woodworking and 3D printing, so I'm not doing many crazy projects, so that might be the craziest.
More questions. I'm running to the back.
Prash.
No, you don't.
Amazing talk, by the way, Pierre. It was really interesting. Amazing storytelling, and I've noticed this in your videos as well. Can you tell us more about how you developed that skill?
Good question, and very interesting, I think. I was a pretty bad content creator, to be honest, because I was making woodworking videos where I was basically saying what I was doing as I was doing it in the video. So I was showing it to the audience, but I was also telling them about doing the same thing. And then I realized, like, I'd been preaching, because I was teaching Swedish in to high school students. I was preaching to them about storytelling, how to be a speaker in front of an audience and how to build a story. And yet I didn't use any of that in my own videos. So I did a course by, I think it was Colin and Samir, who did like a content creator storytelling course. And whatever they said in that course, I was like, that's what I've been teaching. Why have I not been using this in my videos? So that's when I really started, like, sometimes I say scripting. Sometimes it's more of just like figuring out a good story around it.
There's another one.
Talking about burnout, what is one of your things that you found out about burnout later on that you wish you knew earlier?
Kind of going back to what the panel was talking about, like saying no and being offered things and working for free, basically. And I've done that a lot during my content period. And I'm a slow learner, so I still say yes sometimes to my... I have no excuse to do it, but yeah, saying no, don't take on too much pressure, because it's just pressure. And it also depends on what you want with the company. And my goal is just to be able to live on my farm and make videos and have fun. So my goal isn't to build a big company and earn tons of money. I just want to get through. So saying no is probably my best thing yet.
For us inspiring content creators, what advice would you give us?
Like with content creation, for me at least, when I started when I shot my first YouTube video, I was making a leather mouse pad. You know, how dumb is that? Like, you take a piece of leather, you cut a rectangle, that's it, leather mouse pad. There you go, 2-minute video. Like and subscribe. But after I did that video, I was so hooked. I knew straight away, like, this is what I'm meant to do. Like, I loved every inch of it. I was watching videos on YouTube about photography, about cameras, about thumbnails, about, like, it was so many things I wanted to figure out. So I think once you get started, and you'll know if you've fallen in love with it. If you have to struggle every day to make a new video, then it won't last. It has to be something you think about constantly, I think. I don't know if you other content creator agrees, but yeah, it's part of the being burnt out because you can never turn the thing off. Because part of my brain is actually thinking about a thumbnail for my next video right now.
I also have a question by myself.
Yeah.
So, seeing woodworkers doing 3D printing it feels like a niche within a niche. You and also Alexander Chappelle are doing it at a really, really high quality. Does it put more pressure on being creative, knowing that you can also know how to handle wood?
How do you mean?
That was on purpose. No, is it more pressure that you know, okay, I can make things out of wood and I can combine it with 3D printing so I can make even more creative stuff?
Yeah, it adds a bit of pressure, of course. And like I have this guy from England, Bob. He always comments on my videos, and he's super pissed every time I don't use the 3D printer in my videos. I'm like, hey, Bob, sorry, but next video actually involves the 3D printer a bit. No, but it puts pressure, because when you niche down, which I think is a good thing nowadays, to sometimes niche down, because there will be an audience for that niche as well. And what talking about sponsors, if you're making hats for dogs, that's your interest, that's your content. That's a small niche, I would say, making hats for dogs.
Any more questions?
If you have 1,000 followers who are interested in hats for dogs, you have 1,000 people who could buy stuff from you. That's a really good marketing opportunity for a brand. So yeah.
You already talked a bit about storytelling, but I've noticed during your speech it was like really engaging, really interesting, and I was engaged, and I'm not usually engaged. So how is it you do it? It just felt so super seamless, and how?
Okay, that's a whole nother thing, I guess. But and I don't really know sometimes. But I try to focus on a couple of things, like to get a hook early on. Like this is something that's going to come later in my video, but you're not going to see it yet, and might talk about it. But then you can add more of those hooks, like when I said. That confrontation with my wife would not go as planned. That's a hook. Like you might want to know how is that confrontation gonna go, but I'm gonna come to that later, right? So it's building up like that. But I wouldn't say I'm a pro, but yeah.
Okay, any more? Need like walking music when I'm going up.
Hello, Pierre. It's a good follow-up question based on previous one. So, do you sometimes get the gut feeling that this video must be liked or touched by the audience when you're making it? Or is a process so in the beginning you don't feel it, but to a point you started to feel it's gonna be great?
So your question is when do I feel that this is going to be a good video?
Yeah.
So the day after posting a YouTube video, I'm in severe anxiety. Severe anxiety. Like if my wife talks to me, I'm like just like an angry cloud, basically. But that's probably the first time I know. Directly when you release a video, you'll see if it starts like going upwards straight away or not. Before that, I basically have no idea because I'm not smart enough, I guess, to know what works yet.
And to add to this, normally it's like the videos that you think they are very successful and you put them out and they are not at all.
Exactly like that.
Yeah. More questions? There's one here.
What's the best advice you can offer to other young introverts?
It's not an advice really, but just acknowledge it and know that it's okay. It's okay not to want to play with friends all the time. If you have kids, just tell them it's okay because you're probably an introvert. It's not like I'm an introvert all the time. That goes in waves, right? But just knowing it's okay because our society, what I feel like, is heavily geared towards extroverts. Like being at a convention like this exhausts me, especially being here on stage, exhausts me. So I'll probably need a nap later on. But I've noticed my kids are it, and I tell them all the time, if you don't want to go play with your friend, that's totally fine. It's okay. You don't have to feel the pressure to do it. Probably my best advice-ish. Yeah.
Okay, one last question, and then I would refer, if you meet Pierre outside, you can ask whatever you want. One question from Pooch, I guess?
Just really quick. Clearly, with your background as a teacher, I just wanted to know, like, how well has that served you going to YouTube and like actually being up and in front of people and presenting an idea and a curriculum?
Like the reason I wore these glasses, I said I was so nervous to do the speech, and you might think, well, you used to be a teacher for high school students. You must have been doing that all the time, which I did, but then I quit, and that was 5 years ago. And since then, I've been living on a farm, and I rarely interact with people. I just upload videos. So it's been a long time since I've done something similar to this. So I guess that's my answer.
Okay, thank you so much. I will give it up for Pierre, please.
Thank you.
Watch our project soon.